Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video. Got a nice quilt for you today, and a really nice block. And what it is, it's got a big title. Tells you a lot though, you'll be ready. Says, take a pile of triangle squares, oversized rectangles, and a 9-patch to make a beautiful large quilt square, 33-inch, with a charming look. What I want to do today is I'm going to show you the pattern and some samples. Then I'm going to show you the patches. And then for the last, I'm going to go and do the demonstration on the sewing machine for anyone that would like to see the half squares, and then also looking at making the 9-patch. So it comes out with really pretty squares in it. There are only 2 squares in this shape, and there are several patches. The source of this quilt is McCall's Quilting, May, June 2020, page 12. And if you are looking for that pattern, you can go to back issues at www.quiltingcompany.com. In the front of the book, it tells you where you can locate some back copies. This is the quilt. And it is very large. If you do the whole quilt, it's 8.5 yards for the backing, so that tells you how big it is. And there would be a lot of quilting, open area quilting on the front. I'm going to turn the page, and out of that whole quilt, what we're doing is that box right up in this left-hand corner. You've got the big 12-inch blocks on the corner, and then you've got an, let's see, I think it's 8 3/4 inch square there. This is the 12-inch square, and it's made out of triangle squares and then just blank squares. So it's pretty easy once you get those squares done, the 2 color squares, and it goes fast, especially if you do some chain stitching. And we'll do a little bit of that if you've not done that before. Then the second block is the smaller block, and there's only one of those in the block that we did. And I'll show you the quilt, bigger piece that I did where it's all together, and do a little explanation looking at that too. But this is the one, and you've got the 9-patch in the middle. And you know, that 9-patch was really fun and turns out so nice. So I hope you'll stay tuned to see that part. Here's the big block, and it's a little wrinkled. My sister-in-law Molly and I are trying to think of a baby quilt for a friend of ours, and I had done this one, and I said, well, let's look at this. So I took it home for her to see, wrapped it up, put it in a pillowcase. That's what I like to carry my quilts in, is a pillowcase. And we looked at this, and we're not sure yet, but we might actually just use the colors in there. They were doing Beatrice Potter is the theme. And then we thought, well, we might just go with the colors. So let's look at the blocks. If you look right here, on each corner is the big 12-inch square. And it's got, you know, I didn't even notice this till I backed up one day and looked at it. There's a pinwheel right in the middle. It's funny, I was so intent on what I was doing. And then you have the other parts. And the nice thing about this is once you get all those pieces made, then you start putting your rows together. And I had to have myself a cheat sheet, and I made a copy, and you can just look at it, but so that it was so easy to turn the blocks the wrong way. But at least on this one, you can tell when they're not right. And then this one that sort of joins the 4 corners is the one it's got the 9-patch in it. And there again, it's just got the plain squares that surround it. Then the last piece, and this is one I'm sort of excited about, sort of challenged by. This is 9.5 by 12.5, I think. And there's nothing in it yet. So I've already started thinking, what would I like to put in there to make that look good? So, but this is really a nice, beautiful pattern. And here we have my collection of patches. And these don't take long to cut because you've got 3 7/8 inch squares, which make your triangle squares. And then your plain squares, well, they're just plain squares that you do. And then that great big one. So if you look at them, you can see there's the two that'll go together, the 3 7/8 and the 3 7/8. And you take your 3 7/8 and you want to have, you can draw a line through the center and then come back and 1/4 of an inch away from there, make a line on both sides, or use that little tool, which I'm in the right place today. Right here it is. And I just laid it on there. I actually just laid it on there so it was, the center line was from one corner to the other, and drew the outside lines because I know I can figure out, I can cut through there without making a mistake. But if you're not sure, then you can just take and put that line in there for your cutting line. And so you do all of those that are the 3 7/8 like that. And then that is all of that you do for any kind of figuring. And then the other part is the 9 patch. And here's one thing that I liked about on the 9 patch. They're 1.5 inches wide. And you can look and see, though, that mine look kind of funny. They're not, well, those are finished parts. They're not all the same, but they're not all really long. And a lot of the directions, when you have a lot of it, it will tell you to make it the width of the fabric to get ready to put the strips together. Well, for some reason, and I think it just happens, that when you start putting together, if they're very long strips, and then you get ready to press it, somewhere in there, you get off. And so I just like, when I'm doing these, I just like to do it in shorter pieces. And sometimes I get it figured out about how many I can get out of it, so I don't waste. But these were so small, it didn't matter, because here's going to be one set. It's going to be 1.5 with the dark on the outside. And then the second part is going to be the cream or white on the outside with the color in the middle. And you can see, because it was short, then I like to open them up. And you can actually measure it, and it's very close. But you can eye it even and tell that it's close. And for this particular quilt, you're not really going to wouldn't do many long width of the fabric to do it. But that's just one clue to help you get started. Okay, I think we've got everything. We know what it looks like. We got a little plan. I think I'm going to move to the sewing machine for anybody who wants to look at the triangle squares and even putting that 12-inch block together, and look a little bit at the 9 patch. All right, now we're back to one of my favorite places. This is in my kitchen. And I have a window, and so this house has almost become my quilting house because I've taken over both of my kids' rooms now that they're gone, and it's kind of funny. Plus, I have the kitchen table. Okay, here's one that I made for you that was a large sample so that you could look at it. And when I was making after I made the squares, then I would sit with the magazine so that we could go row by row to make sure I got them right. So now what I was going to start with is that 3 7/8 inch block square, and I'm going to take the color that I'm going to use, and they're going to be face to face, right sides together. Okay, and this material was so soft, it doesn't want to slide. So I don't have to pin it. Sometimes, though, you really want to pin them. So I'm going to come over here, and I was going to do a little bit with some chain stitching if you haven't done that, because it's really nice on here. But you just can't just go try to go really fast because you're doing this, because with these squares, what I found was with my machine, oh, that's one of the ideas I was going to tell you, was where I've got my lines. I found out with my machine that if I travel just on the left side of that, and what it did was only had to make one sample to know whether I needed to be on the line or over on the side. And these fit so well that you don't have to trim. Yeah, well, you're going to do a little trimming on the ends, but you don't have to block them in any way. So I've got my thread catcher right there, and I'm going to start with my right hand side. And everything's threaded, and I'm going to move my needle over just to the left of my line right there, and then I'm going to grab the next one, and this time I'm going to go to the left one, and I'll gently set that there. Now I'm going to keep my eye on it to make sure that it catches. There it does. And I'm going to go right down next to that one. Alright, then the only one the way I can get it is to go to this one. So I lift it up a little bit and set it close to that edge. You have to have enough room to cut them apart, and then just come down. And the more careful you are, like I said, the better that's going to be. So then let's undo this. Now let's say I want to go down again. So I generally clip them apart to make it easy to handle. So I'm clipping the little space that I left in there. And now I'm going to start. This side's done, so this one's not. So I'm going to set it on there. I'm going to go into that after I catch it. And even if it's too big, the square's too big, if you go too far inside, all you have to do is take it to your cutting board and lay your ruler on there to make your 3.5 inch square. All right, now talking side. There we go. Back to that side. Oh, my machine sounds a little quieter today. I wonder if it's the weather. Okay. So now I've got those done. And if I had my good pair of scissors, or one of them anyway, I'm going to go down the center, and that's not going to do it. Let's see if this one will do it. There it goes. And I'm just going to cut down the center, because this is not going to be seen. Or you could go cut it with your rotary cutter. Then, when you get your pile, take it to the iron, and if you leave the dark side up, you're going to lay it down, and you're going to carefully go in there, and you're going to press that so that the seam is that way, and you're going to do them all. And when you're also going to notice that you have those little puppy dog ears on there, and after you iron it, just go back and cut those off, because they just get in your way, and it doesn't take but a minute to do it. So I've done enough to do the next box on this for that first 12 inch. And so I'm going to take and look at my directions, and it says I need that one, and I need a 3.5 inch, and I can actually just lay this on here and see, boy, that if you look at that, if you can see that one, you can see how close that comes, and you can trim that if you want to. On that one, I probably wouldn't even worry about it, but I have turned corner up, and then an empty box, and then I tend to leave these sit the same way, put the fabric going one way, so every time I lay it down, I have an idea. Then I'm going to do a bottom, and then I'm going to do another one just like that, and that gives me the first row. And what I like to do is if you're being real careful and you're not sure, you can just start and sew the first block to the second block, and then the second block to the third and over, and that works well. And what I like to do is take and do them in pairs, like do these two together first, and that way you just fold it over, and you know you can't get it turned wrong, and you watch out for that one. Don't let it turn on you. Don't you turn it. And then come over here and do 1/4 inch. And the more, like always, but especially with this pattern, if you're careful with your 1/4 inch, it's going to really be nice. So now here are my blocks again. And see, look how they are the same. I haven't trimmed those off at all. And I'll lay it on there. And here again, if your material's slick or moves, pin it. But this rose-colored material is very, very soft cotton, and it wants to stick together. And I'm going to go down through there. Now, if you're really organized, you can go through and do all the pairs. You just got to make sure that you know what goes where. So when I open this up, I know that this is right, because that one was up and that was plain. Then when I look at this one, I know this is right because both my corners are down. And I've got both sets, and I just come and I sew those together. As you can see, I got caught because I didn't put my tag in it. All right, now, I haven't pressed these open because you can do it two ways, and you can do your next row and your next row, next row. All right, then turn them over, and you can take the first row and iron them all the same way. The second row, you iron those seams the other way, and then you do the same thing with the others so that it goes left, right, or right, left. And then you're ready to put the pieces together. And this is one of those that when you get ready to put it together, if you've got these to the right and that to the left, and you pin it, and then you do this one, and it's all going to the right, so the other one's going to the left. This is one of those where it locks in place. And it's really nice for this because you've got so many places to join them that you see well. And then when you get the pieces put together and you sew that seam across there, then that's the one that I would press it to set the seam, and then open the seam, and it'll help it to lay flatter. Now, if you've been sewing and been going along with me, you can actually come when you start doing these. I'm backtracking for some people, and press these open carefully. Don't iron them, just gently, or even finger press is what I did with them. And you can do all of your rows, and then when you start putting them together, this is where you're careful, and you can either have the two parts laying together, which I don't have another row, and the other one on the back, and then either pin that very first side of the seam. That's one way. So when you're sewing along, you get ready to pull the pin out, and you go all the way across. And that's, if you're experienced or working on a new skill, that does work really nice. And for that one, I did start by doing the first part by having them go to the left and the next row to the right and the next to the left. But you can see I migrated or traveled back to what I like to do, which is opening my seams there. So those are all open, plus the long one is opened. And then when I turn it over, it's just like magic when things turn out sometimes. So that makes that one. I hope that helps on that. And once you start putting it together, you'll start seeing some things that'll help you to get it to work. The only other thing that I wanted to do today, I got to tell you, this is really a nice quilt. And I've got that one ready to quilt when I get a minute. And I'm looking forward to it. And the challenge of trying to fill in the big box with something. And see, if I was hand stitching, I just would start doing something and keep adding to it. But when you start doing it on the sewing machine with the free motion quilting is what I do, you better know where you're going ahead of time. And you guys know that because you've seen some of the videos. So let's take all those little skinny strips we had. And I'm not going to worry that they're the same size, because when I cut these, remember this one we looked at? When we cut this, we are only going to cut off 1.5 inches wide right here. That's what makes this so nice. And then we've got the next strip for the next part, but you're going to need 2 of these cut 1.5 and 1.5, and then just 1 of these, because this will make that center in the block when you look at it. Like there it is. There's one that's that, and then here's the other 2 that are the same. So with that said, it's just fun. There's some things that you could just sit and do all day, I think, and that might be one of them. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start with this strip. And you'll see it's so easy. But here again, and this is one that if your material wants to slide, make sure you pin it. But this is soft cotton that I picked, so it was just an accident because I like the color. All right, now I'm going to come over the sewing machine and I'm going to do very carefully a 1/4 inch. And that's about as far as my attention holds when I'm trying to do something like that. So that one was just right. All right, and we're going to we need more of the outside than the inside. So I'm going to go back to this other long one. And I'm going to put it on the outside because we need more. We need 2 of those for every one of the other one. And now I've got it. I'm going to flip it over. Okay. I've got my little tag in there, and I'm going to come and I'm going to go 1/4. Now, you can either press these to the inside, or you can set your seams and then open those if you want to get rid of the bulk, depending on whether you want to hand quilt it when you get done. And finger pressing works well on this, because this is one, again, you don't want to distort it too much, because just in case you used the stretchy side when you cut it out, because look at the stretch on there. And if I mess with it too much, I'm going to get it stretched out. See if the other one is. But then on the other side, it's not stretched out, so it's not going anywhere. And then just take it and press it, and then do your other part. Once you get those 2 pieces, 3 pieces done, then you're going to go back and you can think about it the same way as we did the big block. And you can take your pieces down, lay your pieces down, and you can do this row to the left, these seams to the right, these seams to the left, and then put them together. Or you can open the seams like we were talking about, and then lay them together, pin it on the left or at an angle, and then sew it together. And it makes such a nice block. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I really like this block. I hope you enjoy it and will try it. If you had fun or learned something, if you'll hit subscribe, which doesn't cost anything, and like, and then always leave a comment. I love it, because I've heard from people in Sweden and just Mexico, and it's just fun to see how far we can, they always say there's 6 degrees of separation between everyone. Well, I think the world's gotten where it's more like 3 degrees. So this is Stephanie. Thank you for watching.